National Parents Union. I'm John Monteleone, and before we get into the topic of today's session, I want my fellow dads to be able to introduce themselves. So Jose, we'll start with you.
Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Jose Manuel Villarreal, and I am very happy to be here with you. I think it's week 4, all the way from California.
Tim.
Hey, and I'm Tim Langen. Happy to be here too, all the way from Somerville, Massachusetts. And I've been waiting for this all week. I can't wait, guys. Glad to see you again.
Same here, same here. And our fan favorite, Michael Scott.
Oh, see here, there you go, brother. I appreciate you. Michael Scott from North Ridgeville right now, right? Director of School Improvement, Canton City Schools in Canton, Ohio.
All right, so once again, hello everybody out there. We want to thank National Parents Union for providing us this platform. Like I said, today is the 4th episode, and we're going to talk about, is it okay for guys to cry and should guys hug? But before we get into that topic, gentlemen, we all tasked each other, what were we going to do this past week that we normally couldn't do if the pandemic did not have us staying at home and locked in for the most part. So Jose, you want to kick it off? What did you finish and did you do what you said you were going to do last week?
Yes, playing Overcook on Xbox. I walked into my kid's room. I sent Tim a video of them doing Minecraft. Can't wait to hear his story. But I missed the day I was supposed to do it, but I did it the next day. And I played Overcooked with them. It's been a lot of fun. It's very competitive. And I look forward to doing some more of it when I have a little more time. All
right. Tim, how about you?
Yeah, so my task was to have my kids teach me about Minecraft. So for a couple of hours this last Sunday, I had my phone, we had our phones out, and I learned 3 very important things. First of all, don't ever, you should dig sideways in Minecraft. If you're digging up, you should have a torch underneath you. And always make sure that your armor is nice and strong. So it was a great couple of hours.
Wonderful. And Mike, I seen your post on social media there. I know you followed through, so share with us. What was breakfast like?
Yeah, so we did. We had some pancakes one day. We had French toast. I had to try to spice up the grilled cheese for lunch because, grilled cheese are just grilled cheese. So we did a pizza grilled cheese sandwich, which was kind of cool. And then, we did spend a lot of time though around the campfire, which is pretty awesome. But I tried to fulfill my piece as much as possible, cleaned up a little bit, made more of a mess than I did actually cleaning in the kitchen, which kind of got me a little bit of problems, but it was all good. It was fun.
Amazing. And I'm happy to say that my daughter and I, we got out for a run. She's healthy.
Nice.
We actually, now we're also running not only together, but we've connected through the Nike Run app. And so we're running virtually as well.
That's awesome.
And I'm gonna take a moment to brag here because, she's an 18-year-old girl, cross-country runner, but her dad has 54 miles clocked this month and she only has 32. Now, I know that's not going to last for long, so I want to go ahead and put that out there so we have it.
My bones hurt just hearing 54.
So, gentlemen, like I mentioned, today's episode is should guys hug and is it okay for guys to cry, which is a very masculine type topic. Before we get started, I felt a good icebreaker for us to be able to share. What is the one anti-masculine thing that you did this week that the most manly of man would be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that guy just did that? Jose, let's start with you.
Tweezers.
Tweezers. Tell us more.
Using tweezers, get that hair out, man, from the ears. Get on, well, not the nose, that's clippers. But I can't even imagine being caught with tweezers in my hand back in the 1800s. But listen, man, you just gotta, I don't know, I have a thing about that. I feel like people, I think you just gotta, they were invented for a reason, and you gotta use them, men. So all you men out there who are struggling with it, you gotta use them, because I see men and I just go, wow, how do you let that go? I mean, you gotta take care of that little hair in the ear area and just anywhere else that might be sticking out. So yeah, I would say tweezers, to be honest with you.
I support that.
Good. All right.
Yeah. Sometimes
from
my
a,
kids
from a
get so
metro male,
long.
I absolutely support that.
Yeah, sometimes it gets so long, I pick up
right.
like TV channels and stuff. It's crazy. Jesus.
Tim, how about you? What's the most anti-masculine thing that you've done this week?
So yeah, I had something with my kids, but then I just realized earlier in the week, my girlfriend Carrie, who was giving me a ribbing before the show, she was over here and she was doing her nails for the first time in like a month, right? And she couldn't, because her hands were all like in these tinfoil things, she couldn't get down to her toes on her right side. So I actually had to do the nails on my left, her right foot. So I did nails.
Yeah.
We had a little nail date this week. Okay, so beat that, Michael Scott.
I can't. I bow down. I am down with that. I'm just hoping my wife didn't hear it.
Yeah, perfect segue though, Tim. So Mike, talk to us, man. What did you do?
All right, so dad to dad, right? We're here, we're dads, we're talking to other dads. So defining this thing called masculinity. However, I just refuse to, have such a firm definition. So my thing that some might say was least masculine. We did two things with my son, Grayson. He likes tea. We had a tea party. He wanted to, got all the stuff out, and I sat down and we tea partied it up. Nice. He has an older sister that's 3, so a lot of her toys become his toys. He loves that. He also loves to drive cars. Now, you might say to yourself, well, cars, that's not, that's pretty masculine, right? Pink Cadillac. So we are running around the whole neighborhood for an hour, and I'm chasing this pink Cadillac. And, a lot of people ask me in my neighborhood already, like, well, where's his truck? Well, he wants to ride the pink Cadillac. So we're going to let him do what he wants to do right now. But, those weren't to me, that wasn't a stretch of masculinity. But obviously, I got some feedback already about my 2-year-old riding around in this pink Cadillac. So
good stuff. That's a dad being a good dad. So myself, I'm a sucker for commercials. I don't know what it is about commercials, but they get me every time. Especially around next month, those Mother Day Charmin commercials. Forget about it. I sit there just waiting for the tears to start streaming. So the other night I was watching TV, and I was watching TV with my girlfriend, and this commercial came on about the homeless population, and it was talking about like how we're supposed to be staying at home, but what if you don't have a home to stay into, and how we're supposed to be washing our hands, but what if you don't have access to running water? And that just got me. I mean, just got me. I started tearing up, and I tried to play it off in front of my girlfriend. I bent down like I was tying my shoe, and it was like trying to wipe the tear out of my eye with my shoulder. But she knows I'm a sucker for commercials, so that to me that would probably make my grandfather cringe at the sight of that. But that's just commercials that get me every time. And so I would like to talk about what do we feel about that, gentlemen? What do you feel about men crying, and like how do you guys show that vulnerability, and how do you teach that to your kids? How do you get rid of the stereotype, especially if you have a boy like Michael and Jose and Tim? I have 2 girls, so I've never had to be in that position, but growing up, I know we each heard like, hey, boys don't cry, rub some dirt on it, toughen up. So what do you guys feel about that? And I would love to hear from all of you. Jose, let's start with you. How do you feel about showing vulnerability? How do you teach that? Is it okay for guys to cry?
You know what? I think it starts with every time I pick up my boys, when I have an opportunity to from school, I would always ask them 3 things. I would say, give me 3 things you learned today, and then give me something that you need to keep working on. For boys, at least in my opinion, it starts with how can I get them to just verbalize something, and how to get it out of their head, and not just give me, I learned math, English, and science. No, I want to hear more about it. And at first, they struggled to do that. And so I said, all right, well, my famous line here is, you tell me when you're ready. And what that means to them is they get no access to anything at home, no iPad, no nothing. but you tell me when you're ready. And very quickly, they've gotten ready very quickly after a while, knowing what was coming, because they're looking forward to playing on their iPad or the computer or whatever. And so that's really what it's trying to get them to self-regulate, because then when it comes to the moment of every day, I hug them. I do everything I can to hug them, or I say, I say to them, like, I just walk up to them and I go, "Why do I love you so much?" I say things like that, and they go, "Dad, stop," But I do that to kind of start. I hate to, but I'm gonna use the word soften them up a little bit, because we're dealing with testosterone, man. I mean, that thing is starting to rage in boys. So then they see me cry, like you, John, in terms of commercials, movies, and I just kind of, it's okay. I just try to normalize the experience as much as I can, but I think it just starts to try to get them to talk, and then I think that's like a gateway towards their emotions. Yeah.
John,
Tim, how about you?
You were saying, yeah, I think the best way that I try to show it is just exactly what you did with your girlfriend. I mean, just showing that it is possible to cry or to show emotion, and just lead by example, which I didn't, it's just not the culture I grew up in. So I don't know if later on in life I craved that, and I wanted to make sure that my kids knew how to express their feelings, and that they knew how to show love for people. Whereas I grew up very bottled up. It just wasn't something you did. I don't think I grew up hugging my dad, to be honest with you. I couldn't imagine my little guys not hugging me, so I want to make sure I show them that. And just like Jose said, I go up to him all the time. I probably drive him crazy saying, "Do you know how much I love you? You know how great you are?" And if you want to talk about an unmanly thing, Jesus, there's nothing better first thing in the morning than cuddling with my two guys. I love it. I love it. So I think just showing through example that that's okay, will really pay off in the long run.
Michael?
Yeah, that example piece is huge. Like, that's our function, is to be the model, right? The blue, like what Jay-Z said, you lay the blueprint, right? But then you take that whole blueprint to a whole nother level. Each generation just keeps growing and growing with that. So I'm gonna share a quote from Jim Valvano. I think we heard this, but if you laugh, you think, and you cry, that's a full day. That's a heck of a day. You do that 7 days a week, you're gonna have something special. So just embedded right there is the notion that it is okay. And I want to take that a little bit further by, kind of even as you've been talking, I broke it down in kind of like 3 different ways. Tears of joy. Like, I love to laugh, and like, what is better than that laughter that just brings, you laugh so hard that the tears start coming down, right? So that's one category. Like, we're gonna have such a good time with life, we're gonna have tears of joy sometimes. Tears of compassion and empathy. Like, I want my son and I want my daughter to be empathetic human beings, and that may move you to tears, and the tears will lead you to action, right? And the action there is how you serve humanity. So the servant leadership can come through those tears of empathy. And then the last one is real, like tears of hurt feelings. Like, we bottle things up, and then as men sometimes we lash out. I know, I'll speak for myself personally. I keep it in, and then all of a sudden, ugh. But if we let those out and know that it's okay to let those out, then maybe we're not as negative in our responses to things. So to me, those, being able to compartmentalize your tears too, lets you know that it's okay.
Yeah, I think what Tim said, like, a lot of it is like cultural and upbringing. And I was sharing with Jose and Mike yesterday, my dad is a very guy's guy. He fought in the Korean War, just very tough. But we also grew up in a very close-knit Italian family where we were always hugging on each other, always kissing each other on the cheek. Both of my parents worked 2 jobs, so when they were home, I was always on their lap. It was all that love was always there. And I guess for me, it really didn't hit me until I was in 9th grade that, boys and their fathers didn't have that same relationship. And I remember this till today, because I was in an award ceremony. I was presented with an award, and I walked back to the table where my father and my mother were sitting, and I just naturally, hugged and kissed my father on the cheek, and him same to me. But the next day, my counselor called me down to the office, Ron Major, and I want to give him a big shout out because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Ron Major, but he called me down to his office and he said, John, he said, I have to share this story with you. He said, it was so wonderful to see you just feel comfortable in a public setting, hugging and kissing your dad on the cheek in that moment. And he's like, I just want to congratulate you because not a lot of, boys would do that, especially in 9th grade in an award ceremony. But to me, it was kind of natural. And I'm fortunate that we had that upbringing. And I agree with all of you. We have to lead by example, right? We have to show that it's okay. And it's okay to be vulnerable and have emotions, when it's due time.
Yeah. I think one way I really learned about it with my oldest son was because he has ADHD, and sometimes I noticed around the age of 5 or so, he get very overstimulated sometimes. And he'd have these emotional outbursts, especially at the end of the day, So all of a sudden I would have to, it would just come out of nowhere. And it was almost like this built up emotion throughout the day that would come out around 5:30. And I had to learn eventually, I think if it was my dad growing up, he would just shut that down. He would shut that down by yelling or with a firm look. But, what I had to learn to do was to let him release that, until he, like you said, until he was ready to talk about it. And that might be an hour, that might be a half an hour, but it was just like this time where I would have to step away and let him feel his feelings. And then throughout the day, anticipating that too, I would have to say, hey, buddy, how are you doing? Tell me how you're feeling about this too. And again, never happened to me growing up. Never happened to me growing up at all.
Tim, really interesting. It reminds me of my older one. My older one was born with Kawasaki's disease. In fact, he wasn't born with it, he contracted it.
Yep.
And it's a long story, but it comes out of, I guess, the air. We were living in a city down here in Southern California, and he got it, and it impacts your heart and all this. But, it was interesting because when he was, I want to say 2 years old, I remember him battling to try to get on the bed. And I wouldn't let him for whatever reason, because he was being silly or being ruckus, 2-year-olds. And then he would have these like massive emotional breakdowns, screaming, yelling. And then he would come on the bed, and then I would do like this hold therapy with him, where I would cuddle with him, but I would hold him and tell him, tell me when you're ready and I'll let you go. Tell me when you're ready and I'll let you go. And I was because I started as a counselor in my career. And it really worked, but at first he fought me like crazy. But then eventually, I wasn't like restraining him, but I was like holding him and trying to soothe him at the same time, trying to get him to understand how to soothe himself. And then that's why that phrase caught on of tell me when you're ready.
Yep.
And then he would say, reluctantly he would say he was ready. And then I just let go. And over time, that's just been the thing. Tell me when you're ready. Tell me when you're ready. Even when they break down as older kids now, I say, all right, well, you tell me when you're ready.
Yep. And
then within seconds, all right, I'm ready. Because they know I'm just going to wait.
Right.
I ain't in a hurry. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Michael, I know your dad was a huge impact on your life. You have any stories that you want to share?
Well, so yeah, I could think of a ton of stories about my dad, but I also want to honor my mom too, because I think my wife said this the other day. She said, "You know what? You're just like your parents." Now, the context that she was saying it, right? Because we all have good things and bad things to each other. But that is the true statement. I am a blended benefactor of both of their. She broke in. I'm so sorry.
Come on, man.
This isn't
Mike.
Hi, Addison.
Mike.
Cute.
Addie.
Hey, what's up?
Say hi, Addison, everybody.
Hi.
Okay. Oh, now get out of here. Man, I'm getting phone calls now too. Like, I'm so sorry. This is live too.
Man.
Let me get back in here. But
just like rehearsed, right, Mike?
Yeah, right. Perfect. So stop it. So yeah, my dad was a big influence. But one of the things, our relationship got better over time, right? So early on, he was a huge, my coach. He did those, you got to be tough. I was playing hardball at the age of 4, and, you couldn't cry, even though I wanted to cry because I couldn't get a hit until the very end of the season, right? But it was always those lessons. But it wasn't until, I shifted more so into a professional that the sharing of emotions became even a part of who we are. And I was out of that empathy piece, to be honest. It really, when he started seeing me work with students, and my dad was one of the mentors, we talked about it in one of the previous episodes, he was one of the mentors in GJW, but when he started to see my connection with students, he understood why I was doing what I was doing, and then B, the impact that work has. So there were actual tears of empathy shared between the two of us as we shared stories, as we did this work together. And from then, it's just been on and on and on. And now grandkids, forget about it. He's like floodgates. Like, give me pictures. All these, give me videos. Like, Dad, chill out. Like, so he's a completely different man now. I think that comes with age and comes with experience. But it was also, I think my responsibility to show, hey, this is how we do things a little bit differently now too. So, but my mom was that steady force all the time, and I am that way because of her, right? So without that, I would have never gotten there. And so that's a little bit.
Yeah, I think, your story, Mike, reminds me of, and amongst the same topic of like, the guy's role in the home and masculinity. I shared with you guys, like growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, and dads out there, you guys know that child daycare is really expensive. And my mom cleaned houses for a living. So on the summers, she would take me with her. And I remember her just teaching me how to iron and how to polish fine wood, do laundry, do the dishes. And those are all the things that she did in the home. And she would always tell me, like, hey, when you go home, I don't want to catch you. Don't let your dad catch you vacuuming the carpet or doing the laundry or stuff like that, because in his mind that wasn't the role of his sons or the boys. And so, it wasn't till the day that he came home early. And, the one thing when your mom cleans houses for a living, the last thing she wants to do when she comes home to work is clean houses. Right. So when I would get home early for school, I would do the dishes. I would vacuum the carpet. I would make sure that when she came home, she could just rest. And that was always very important to me. And doggone it, if one day my dad didn't get off work early and come home, and I'm there, with the mop and the bucket, and I'm vacuuming the carpet, and he just kind of gave me that look. But over time, he softened up, and it was okay for his son to be doing domesticated. I know society has changed a lot from when it was then, but our moms play a role in us being able to show our emotions too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think growing up, it was my mom who let me show my emotions. It was nice, I think there's always that bond between the mom and the son. And yeah, I think growing up, I could cry in front of my mom. Whereas my dad, you had to be hard. You had to be hard.
Yeah, my mother, I just heard her walk down the hall. She's like 4'8". And, anyone who knows my mother was like, she's a saint. She still goes to Catholic mass covering her head. She's old school that way, rosaries every day. But she's full of joy and love, and went through a lot, growing up. But she always demonstrated that. So that's true. She always demonstrated what it was to show that emotion. I remember breaking my dad down, as he got older, and I got into that counseling program, and I started kind of working on it. And I remember bear hugging him and softening him up, and eventually he got real soft, which I really appreciate and love. But imagine big old Mexican man breaking him down, boy. That was a kick, but it worked. And then all of a sudden he's doing dishes for my mom. He's doing stuff later in his life. So that's true. You guys are right. It's how's that saying go? About behind a strong man is a even stronger woman.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know this is the Dad for Dad, and we're talking about role of masculinity, and you know, I can't help but to think about my son right now and my daughter that, you know, just came in. And, you know, we are working so hard to not define them by gender. You know, you are human. Like, we want them to be just good human beings right now. And I watch them interact, and they don't play. And I think I said this last time, like, they don't play with race on their mind right now. They play. They don't play with gender expectations. Like I said earlier, we tea party it up. My daughter was playing with her poppy. My dad got her remote control cars, and she's playing with remote control cars, and that's cool, right? And it should be. But at what point do we then, you know, begin to put in these gender roles and the race roles, and and how do we? To me, that's almost like as I think aloud, it's a vicious cycle. You know, at what point do we say enough's enough? And do we leave that? And I think this conversation and hearing the stories are, you know, it's happening, but it needs to happen at an exponential rate in order to improve things for humanity and to change the world, right? That we're trying to do and make it a better place. So I just want to say thank you again for being a part of this conversation, because as I sit here, my daughter comes in, I just can't help to think. And we put a loose structure of what we're going to talk about. Man, you guys make me grow every time we sit and talk for these 45 minutes each week. So I just thank you.
Oh man, that's great. Mike, I got to tell you though, I messed up last week. I mean, I'm still trying to get rid of my behavior, my thinking, because my sons were messing around. They weren't listening to their mother. I heard them from afar. I called them over here. And I think I may have said, stop crying. Because I was so angry, because I never in my life disrespected my mother. I mean, never. 4'8". I've owned homes, cars, dogs. She told me to sit down, I sit down. Come with some I come with some eat. I mean, I'd be hungry, I could sit down. I mean, and for him to talk back, it lit me up. But that was my initial response, you know, is to say that. And I was like, immediately I went, oh, why did I shouldn't have said that. I didn't mean to say that, but I said it and it's out. And I thought, I got to bring it up next week in my therapy, because I don't know why. I mean, I don't even have broken that down yet, but it just came so natural. Yeah.
Jose, have you had a chance to follow up?
No, I haven't. No, because then I got into my whole dad spiel, right, about disrespect and what I expect them to do in the future, go apologize. Oh, and then I made them hug each other, my sons, and you know, got to bring in the Catholic guilt, man. I said, that's all you got. I said, when I die, that's all you got, you know, because it's this weird thing about how to do that. Man, yeah, it just hit me when you were saying about that, Michael. I mean, you're right. Yeah, I don't know why I did that. It just came out naturally, like just the way my generation was, you know. But I also grew up where no blood, no foul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You bleeding? No, you be all right.
Yeah, right.
That's okay too. Like you know, I want both of my children to be tough too. Like, man, unless it really hurts, suck it up. Let's go. But being able to know the difference too, right? Because sometimes you just, I don't know. Sometimes when I was playing, if I didn't want to play a little bit more, then maybe they did come down, and it was intentional. You know, to get that type of attention. So I think there is a line though that we have to be able to help our kids and ourselves even understand of, you know, it is that what is it, that emotional control, right? So it's good to release, but it's good to also know that there's time and place for everything, and you know, that everything that we do communicates something.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you know, we talked in another episode about code switching, right? And you know, like I used to coach football, and so like Mike said, and like Jose said, like there's that line, right? Like where the stern coach comes out of you, and you're trying to coach and teach a lesson, and then you got to balance that with also, you know, being a parent and also be allowed to just teach that vulnerability at times and where that comes in. So there's a time and space for everything.
Hey guys, I don't mean to throw anything off here, but we just got a really, a mom actually just reached out to us for some advice on Facebook. So she has a pretty serious question here. Her son's father died before he was 2. And now the kid is 17, and she never remarried. Is there anything that we could say that a mom might not say to their son to give them some advice in life? She wants to make sure she didn't miss or overlook something, which I think is a good question. Like, how do you fill that? If we were going to say something to this mom right now, what could that be? I think it's tough sometimes. Certain moms, it's tough. It's a tough void to fill. Sometimes you need that man energy to share with another boy.
Yeah, that's first of all, I'm sorry to hear that. That is tough. And I know I can only think, having to be the mom and fill the void for a father. I think the advice that I would give her is just really talk to him about, the values that you have instilled in him in those first 17 years. And I know some of the best lessons that I learned about being a man came from working with my mom. And I just the way that I grew up and the way my parents worked, I spent about 80% of my childhood with my mother, and about 20% with my father. So I think what led to me being the man that I am were the lessons that I learned from my mother. So, she definitely should not cut herself short. He is probably picking up on some wonderful lessons just by watching her, go through the day-to-day struggle that she goes through.
Yeah, I really agree with you, John. I think when when that question's asked a lot of times, it's those normal gender roles, as if boys are supposed to grow up a certain way. Same thing. I was closer to my mom than to my dad growing up, and there's and because of that, I like to think I grew up a little bit more sensitive, or a little bit more empathetic. Those are values I want to instill in my kids right now. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. So I agree with you. Still those roles, and I think that's you're doing okay.
Throw up this hand. My dad used to tell me, you are the 5 people you associate with the most, right? Yeah. So that would be my advice, to know who those 5 people are that you're associating with, and know what their character is and who they are. And then also, to me, it was, my friends, if they didn't get my mom's seal of approval, sorry, I couldn't roll with you. And that even manifests itself in relationships too, right? That's a whole nother conversation. But, respecting and honoring my mother is paramount. Like, I have no qualms with saying, call me a mama's boy till I die. Thank you for the compliment, right? Yeah. So to mom, I would just say, like, make sure that he knows you are those 5 people that you associate with, and choose wisely. Because when you leave the house, you're representing me and I'm representing you. So we're going to both choose wisely.
Listen, I think there are a lot of folks out there that can help. I mean, mentors, would be very important. Anyone that, and I know we're not trying to define by roles or gender, and it helps because they have to know what the rest of the world's going to do to them in some way or other. So it's a fine line, but I feel I feel your pain and what you're going through for that mom. I can imagine what that son remembers of his father at 2 and now 17. And I think just if it was a good situation, I would just keep talking about the father. I'm sure you're already doing that, showing pictures, telling stories, favorite sayings. And I definitely think mentorship would be important as well in that regard. I think it would extend, and maybe it could be added to Michael's, one of the fingers of that village would be important for me. I mean, I was raised by some strong women, some strong Mexican women. I mentioned that in the last episode, and that's who really raised me in some regard when my parents were working out in the fields and cleaning houses and all that. So I think mentorship would be key for you in that regard. Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for jumping on that question. I'm sure she appreciates it.
No, thanks for sharing. I love the interaction with the audience here. We should encourage more of that, definitely.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, I know we're ending up towards the about 10 minutes left in this episode. And Jose in the pre-production meeting came up with this wonderful idea of, trying to use this platform to honor our ancestors and honor someone that has really impacted our lives. And so I think this is a good segue into doing that. And Jose, it was your idea, so I would love for you to just kick us off. And who would you like to level up, raise up today?
There's a lot on the list, so I apologize, not in any order, but the late Mary Lou Montes, she taught me how to curse with permission. She was a Mexican lady who worked in the fields, befriended my parents. They all became friends. And she told me how to stand up to a bully when I was a kid. Unfortunately, not encouraging this, I did hit him with that old metal lunchbox in the head, so you leave me alone. But she'd encourage me. She said, don't you ever let anybody do that to you. And then she would give me like dollar bills for A's and B's. She passed, I want to say, a couple years ago. I miss her dearly. She is one of my ancestors, one of these strong women I'm talking about. Mary Lou Montes, man, rest in peace. But she allowed me to curse, man. And my mom was like, well, just don't do it too much, but only do it with that bully, But anyway, thank you for having me start that off. That's what I thought of right now. Yeah.
All right, Tim.
I'm gonna throw it to my grandfather, my grampy. He was this hardworking longshoreman on the docks of Boston, but I knew him as my grandfather, who was, I just think of this like guy I aspire to, because he was so calm, he was so patient. I can count on a couple of fingers how many times I saw him lose his temper over the 21 years I knew him, and he just gave this, he just showed so much love to everyone, And I always think of like what we said a couple of times, and I hear it a lot during this pandemic, that we're going to go, and actually, John, I think you brought up this phrase when I first met you. We're going to look back and remember not what our resume was, but how we treated people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I remember it. He might have worked his butt off for 50 years, but people remember him as this loving guy. Anyone I meet in Boston who knows him says the same exact thing. And I just aspire to that. He just taught me how to be such a patient, nice guy. So that's my ancestor.
Michael.
Yeah. Wow. Listening to Jose and Tim talk, I mean, in this episode we were talking about, it's okay for men to cry, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, all right, I got to keep this in. So I just want to start there, but
same here, man. Same here.
About, I kind of got in my own space for a moment, and I started thinking about my grandparents. I'll start with my grandfather, Bassey Scott Sr., who I remember just being a kid, just thinking he was like 7 foot. In my mind, he was the biggest man I ever seen. Come to find out he was 6 foot, but I mean, but he couldn't read or write. Picked cotton in Mississippi, came up to Lorraine and worked in the steel mill for 35 plus years, right? Very rarely, if ever, missed work, but instilled in all of his children this pride towards you will be a scholar and a gentle person, whether it's a gentleman or a lady, and the fruits of that labor resulted in everyone going to college. Like that became, and I knew nothing else but, like, for me that was, he changed the trajectory of our family, but he couldn't do it without my grandmother, who we just laid to rest in November. She was the I at night now I sing a song with my son or my daughter, Jesus is real to me. It says, gave me the victory. So many people doubt him, but I can't live without him. That's why I love him so, right? And the idea was that was my grandma's song. And she's, to the point where my son now just knows it. So her legacy, her lineage, lives on through me, through them, and it just carries forth. So I just want to give love to them because I'm not nearly the person I am without them.
Gentlemen, thank you for sharing that. I think for myself, it is, my late mother, Lynette Marie Monteleone. She is who I am. I live her legacy every day. She was the type of woman that would give you the last penny in her pouch, give you the shirt off of her back. She worked 2 jobs, and going to work with her and cleaning houses in the summer, watching her get on her hands and knees and just scrub floors all day long, and then come home and be a wonderful mother, and a superb wife. I just learned my work ethic from her. I learned how to treat people. She was one of the kindest people that you would ever meet. Nobody had a bad spirit in them. She looked at everybody and saw nothing but the good in everybody. May have trusted too much, but it's one of those things that I think about her every day. I talk to her every day, and I love to talk about her every day because it carries on her legacy. I love to talk to her about, to my children about her. She lives within me, and every night that I go to bed, I just hope I made her proud. And so, I wanted to share that with you guys, my friends and my brethren, and everybody out there as well.
That's great. Thank you.
And so that concludes our 4th episode of Dad to Dad. Tim, and I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to host. This
Hey, man,
was
we're
my
doing it
first
together,
time.
man. Awesome.
I hope I made you proud.
Yeah.
But before we end, we talked about that one anti-masculine thing that we did this week, and so we'll close up. And what's that one anti-masculine thing that you want to do this week before we reconvene next week?
Man, I'm gonna cuddle some more with my guys. Everyone, especially as they get older, I'll make sure they sleep in their own bed. But there are nights where I'm like, come on in and have a slumber party with me, man. And I love it. And the bed's as hot as hell, and I wake up in the middle of the night all sweaty. But I just love waking up with those guys. They're just so cool. So I think I'm gonna have a sleepover with my guys.
Awesome, Jose.
Oh man, I'm just gonna keep doing me, man. And just every time I see him, just yesterday I was driving to go get food for my son, my older one. I was just grabbing his cheek as I'm driving. He's like, I'm just grabbing his cheek, grabbing his neck, just touching him. I'm not soft. We're not soft. We're just trying to show what love really should feel like in a really real way. So that's what I'm gonna keep doing. Yeah.
Michael.
So I'm gonna go through my phone list. And I'm going to identify all my former friends that I've reached out to now, that I talk to regularly, and some that I haven't since maybe even college. And I'm just going to send them a message that says, I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. And just leave it like that.
That's awesome. I think what I'm going to do is I love to bake, but I'm not really a cook. And my girlfriend, she just recently bought this new Alexa Echo. It has this screen on it, and every time I walk by it, it's like how to make bacon baked potatoes and eggs, and I'm like, oh my god! And so I've been writing down these recipes on this little tablet next to it, but I never do anything with it because it just looks so good. So I think instead of leaving that incognito clue to my girlfriend to maybe I should try making this. I think I'm gonna make it myself. And I know that's not anti-masculine because some of the greatest chefs in the world are males, but it would be out of my zone, and I have nothing but time on my hands, so why not learn how to cook?
Nice, man. I want to see you next week.
Yeah. Well, listen, fellas, this concludes our episode. I want to thank all of you for your time. I want to thank all of the audience out there. Please continue to like us on Facebook. And just like the young lady that asked the question, if there's any topics that you want us to cover or talk about, please send them in. We'd be more than happy to add that to our episode list.
Who's the next guest host?
I think it's Michael.
Bam.
Bam.
Yeah.
Yes.
I might have a couple I might have a couple people with me next week.
Nice.
Love it. Love it.
Back.
Can't wait, man.
All right.
I like it. I
I
like it.
appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
All right. You guys have a wonderful week.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.